Good morning, everybody. Lachlan pressed the magic button, enter lobby, and you all came in together. So welcome, welcome, and thank you for joining me and everyone else this morning. It's really nice. We've got a fair few people coming in, so we'll let them, and Lachlan will starting the recording shortly. Always so nice to see familiar faces in this space and smiling familiar faces, most importantly, as far as I'm concerned. Hopefully, that's very similar at the end. It will be. You'll be even better at the end. That'll be fine. Still a few more people coming in, so we will start. Give it another minute or so, if that's all right. Thank you very much for joining us at this session too. At this time, appreciate that there are other things on and that some of you are on a break. So thank you for making the time to come. Okay, seems like there's mainly people here, so I will start the session. Hello, I think everybody knows me, but I'm Deborah Shield. I'm with the peer review team, and we welcome you, and Wendy's here too. On behalf of the team, we welcome you. Once again, we thank you for being peer reviewers. The Charles Sturt peer review microcosm, I guess, depends on the peer reviewers. It depends on you all being here. So much appreciated. Welcome to the people who are new to peer review for 2025, and welcome back to those of you who may have been here 22, 23, or 24 in the last few years, and you're back. This is a refresh session as well as an information session. I will run through some of the updates to start with and then open for questions. And please do feel free to ask any questions. I will answer them to the best of my ability. If we don't know, we'll find out. But mainly we can get through them. Also, just to talk about things that may be top of mind when we're entering into the peer review season, if you like. I'll get straight into it. I think most people are here. Lachlan says we're good to go, so we will go. I will share my screen with you to run through. It's a Padlet presentation, but we'll run through some information. And this will be fairly quick, I hope, and then open for discussion and questions. So, few changes this year with regard to the policy. The promotion policy has changed this year. Little bit of impact from the point of view of weighting. Many of you will have colleagues and potentially people you're supervising who are going for promotion this year. So being aware of the new promotion procedures, a great idea. From a peer review point of view, I've just quoted it up on the site that it now states, it's a little bit clearer in a way, it now states that if you're including teaching in the application, the applicant does need a subject experience survey and a summative peer review. And that includes people who are doing HDR supervision. So that is fairly clear. When people are, by the time they get to you as peer reviewers, they will know this. But just if things come up and people say, well, I can't do it or I don't know how to do it, etc., there's a policy reference for you there. The peer review team, we do support the division of people in culture. Peer review it's a piece of the promotion puzzle for the applicants. It's an important piece. I think it's a fabulously important piece because it gives peer reviewees an opportunity to demonstrate and celebrate their excellent teaching practice. But from a promotions process point of view, it does support it. So we support them to meet the policy requirement to obtain a summative peer review in support of their application for promotion if they claim teaching. There has been some discussion about people who do HDR supervision and their requirement. That might be the only type of teaching they do. And the next slide sort of addresses that. Once again, this shouldn't really impact on you, but it's sometimes nice to have this background that when we talk about educational practice and the workload allocations, etc., the things that are included in teaching, direct teaching, that includes the direct teaching, the face-to-face, the subject level teaching, but it also includes learning design, assessment, those dimensions or those capabilities of teaching. WIL supervision and HDR supervision is included as a teaching practice. Now that is supported by policy. Once again, if you're getting some feedback on that, if you're stuck, let us know, but otherwise it is supported by policy there, that is. And educational leadership. Many of the people going for potentially from C to D or D to E or even B to C have educational leadership roles. They are included in this excellent teaching practice. So you will be reviewing them. We review them and we do it frequently. It's been done for many years. That's been included in the peer review. So please don't feel alarmed if somebody's coming to you. If you have any questions, reach out to us and we'll be able to clarify them. The one thing that I like to say, when we match people up as peer reviewers, so the peer review team matches a peer reviewer and a peer reviewee, one of the considerations we give is if the peer reviewee has asked for direct teaching observation, we try to match them up at campus level. That just sometimes doesn't work. People have moved, things have changed. So if you do have a peer reviewee who is asking you to actually view a synchronous session at a campus and you're not at that campus, let us know. We'll swap out a peer review for you. That doesn't happen often, but if it does happen to you, be aware, we can fix it. It's just sometimes it's harder to get those levels. It's more important to get those levels. And most of the time now, much of the time now, people have their on teaching recorded. Even the lab work is sometimes recorded now. So that evidence tends to take more forms. There's a range of evidence we can look at. But if you do get that and you're stuck, jump on it straight away and let us know. We'll sort it for you. The process, very similar for those of you who have done it before, for those of you who are just new or just want to get it sort of front of mind as the season approaches. The peer reviewer actually, the peer reviewee does quite a lot of the work, and we did sort of shift that. We were finding in the earlier days, 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of peer reviewers were translating a lot of the evidence because they were getting all sorts of different kinds of evidence. So the peer review process now looks at the peer reviewee selecting the teaching capabilities. I've got some information on these teaching capabilities, but the teaching capabilities framework is a Charles Sturt-wide framework. It's not for peer review only. It's not developed for peer review. We've linked it to peer review because it is a teaching capabilities framework. So that really does underpin what the peer reviewer is going to be choosing to show you, choosing to have peer reviewed. At Charles Sturt, the peer review process is mandatory for people who are claiming teaching practice as part of their promotion application. Now, I don't use that word often. I'm using it in this group, but to explain that because of that, we want to make it, within those boundaries, we want to make it as peer-driven as we can, as reviewee-driven as we can. We want the peer reviewee to be able to choose what they show. We don't sneak into their classroom. We don't sort of do anything underhand and review work they don't know. We are very transparent. We're able to bring people from outside of their school, people such as yourselves. You review people from outside of your school, outside of your discipline, and at a different level. It has all sorts of advantages, but that's why it matters. It gives them the autonomy to choose, well, this is what I'm going to show. We're not assessing people. We're not reviewing people against one or two defined frameworks. They can choose out of these 12. To have an initial meeting with you. We make very clear, and I've had a couple of sessions of this, such as this, with the peer reviewees. We ask them to be really proactive in setting up meetings and things for you. If you haven't heard from them for an initial meeting, it is up to them to contact you. If you feel concerned and you don't think, well, I'm not going to contact them, contact us if you wish. We do send reminders out saying, make sure you've contacted your peer reviewer, but it is a reviewee-driven system. That initial meeting, I mean, there's information on here, but really it's to plan the review and to think about, well, talk about that initial guidance. This is really where, as a peer reviewer, a lot of your input potentially will come from. You're not choosing them, you're not changing them, but when people talk to you, when your reviewees talk to you, they'll say, "Oh, I think I'll do this one, or I'd like to do these ones." When you're thinking about evidence and when you get that initial meeting, it is the perfect time to provide a little bit of guidance. For example, many people will say the number one in the teaching capabilities framework is something like incorporate inclusive teaching practices. Now, nearly everybody in Charles Sturt, and certainly everybody that I've met in Charles Sturt, wants to incorporate inclusive teaching practices in their teaching. But people should drill down. They need to drill down a little bit to see that criteria so that they can give you evidence, because you're going to be saying, that's fantastic, that's great. Where's your evidence? What can I look at that shows me that you actually do this? So sometimes some of the other capabilities are easier for the peer reviewer to provide you with evidence. I'm not talking about an easy way out. I'm talking about celebrating excellent teaching. If they sort of work through it a little bit more, people will start to think, actually, I do this. Yes, I do this. And yes, I've got this evidence. And it's different. So just be aware that first meeting might, you might be finding yourself giving a little bit of guidance there, but it is driven by the reviewee. The reviewee then goes away and reflects and records on their practice and gets their evidence ready for you. So that's quite a long time generally. There's a week, 2, 3, there may be 5 weeks in between that time, but that is their role after your first meeting. You usually will agree when you've got the time frame for submission. I'll go through the date in more formally, but so that you know, the 25th of July is the last date a peer review report can come to Charles Sturt, to the peer review team. You probably need 2 weeks prior to that, I would think. Some of you will have different ideas, but I would, when I do a peer review, I would ask for it to be to me early, the first week in July, so that I have those 2 weeks to look at it. Of course, we all try. If somebody says I'm away those 2 weeks in July, I can't get it to you till X, you can choose to say, okay, I'll put it in my diary for this date. But deadlines are important, and it is up to the peer reviewee to meet them. You then do your assessment, and it's a summative assessment. I'll talk about that. And then you submit it to us, and we send it off to DPC, as well as the peer reviewee. So the peer reviewee does get a copy of your peer review report. I don't think that will shock anyone. I think that is a nice process. It's an open process. If, however, there's something that you're concerned about, or you just like some different words to express some things, call us. It'll be Kashila this session mainly, but call us and we'll see what we can do. We'll see if we can give you some words or some guidance on how to do it. But most of you are very experienced in doing this, so you may not need us. A few updates for this year.
Sorry, Deb, to cut you off. We just had a request from Jen in the audience. Would you mind just repeating that sort of date information, etc., that you just covered? Thanks.
Yes. Date for you, peer reviewers, you need to get it to us, to the peer review team, by the 25th of July. I suggest you have 2 weeks, negotiate 2 weeks with your peer reviewee to have their submission evidence submitted to you so you can review that by, I'd suggest, early July. Now, they can do it anytime, but that would be at a latest if I was doing it. That's the latest I'd like it. Doesn't always work out. Jen, you probably know that. Great. And another date that I'll mention, that not so relevant for you, but the intent to apply for promotion finishes on the 30th of April. We've aligned our deadlines with that as well. The last day we can receive a submission for a request for a peer review is the 30th of April. Again, most of you here probably don't need to know too much more about that than what I've just said. The peer review template. So last year we surveyed those of you who had been doing peer reviews in 23 and 24, and we got great feedback. It was so nice. It's so lovely. Most people said, the best thing about being a peer reviewer is connecting, talking to, sharing practice. And we know that is a really wonderful thing. But a number of you also said the template was a bit confusing. It was a little hard. It was a little crowded, etc. So Lachlan's here now, but we have updated the template. It's an infillable one. I'm just showing it on the screen, but it's so much easier for both parties to use, I think. The first bit gets filled in, but really the peer reviewee now selects a teaching capability from this teaching capability framework. They put their reflection in here, and it's a maximum of 500 words. And they link out to supporting evidence. So when I say link out to supporting evidence, some people will have Google Docs, some people will have other sorts of folders, some people will have it in the Brightspace site. It will depend on really the capability that you're reviewing, but that the reviewee pops that in. You then put your comments in there, maximum of 400 words. Don't feel that you have to do 400 words. We're the eyes and the ears of the promotion assessment panel or committees, so they'll read that. But it doesn't have 400 words can be quite a significant amount, or for some people it can be not enough. But certainly it is limited in this template, so it just makes it easier. It makes it more consistent as well. And then it's times 3. They choose 3 capabilities, and then literally you do some final overall comments, sign it, and that's the template for this year. So I'll be looking forward to feedback to see how that goes, how you all feel with that one. Another update has been the timing. Previously, we'd said we'd given guidance that peer reviewers had about 2.5 hours, I think, was last year. It just wasn't on. I'm not going to be, as the peer review team, we don't want to minimize the work and the effort you put in. One of the questions said, how long did it take? And most people put between 5 and 7 hours. Some put over 7, but 5 and 7. So if you're looking at reporting on it or talking about it in your own promotion or PPDR conversations, we know that it takes about 5 hours for a peer review. So that's another update, which I think is directly in response to the feedback from the survey, and which I think makes the process better. I've spoken about this, but it really does just provide the third-party evidence. A lot of the calls we get from peer review, both peer reviewees and peer reviewers, links to this third one about, second one, who's making a judgment. Sometimes because it's linked to the teaching capabilities framework, and the teaching capabilities frameworks has level A, B, C, D, E. Some people are going from level C to D. There's often a call, do I have to show that I can do level D? Not from a peer review perspective. A peer review, you're not making that promotion decision. When you have your initial discussions, you'll guide people, but from the promotion, the peer reviewer point of view, you are making a summative decision evaluative decision actually on the evidence they provide you against their claims. So you don't make those decisions, and we've been making that as clear as we can. I think it's getting more and more an accepted part of, from the peer reviewee point of view, that a peer review report is part of an application process. The people who make the decisions are, of course, the committee. We're the eyes and the ears of the selection committee, and we get the third-party evidence out there. So, nearly finished here. The 4 key points that we had from our survey of peer reviewees, so survey from you last year, was that you often, the real crux of getting into the peer review or having that first meeting is sometimes people aren't prepared. They come and they say, look, I haven't had a chance to have a look at this, I haven't done that. So the sort of minimum that we suggest that people do is that they should have engaged with the DPC information. And I think there was a DPC session last week. I saw many of you there for a drop-in session for the peer reviewees. They get links to that document. But from your point of view, it's nice to be aware there is on the DPC website loads of information to support the promotion application. So when they come, they should have understood that there is a peer review requirement, and they should understand the promotion timeframes or processes. If they don't, linking them into that DPC site can help. The peer review context information, as a minimum, we've asked them to be ready to talk to you about, well, this is what I do, this is my teaching context, this is what I want to show. And again, that's sometimes the really fun part of it, is that you can be talking to them, and together they shape how they're going to proceed with their peer review application. And particularly now with the changes to the peer review, the promotion policy and procedure and evidence guide, they need to have had a conversation with their manager. So once again, sometimes you can get into tricky spaces. People will ring and say, this person really had no idea, and I don't think they've even spoken to their manager. You can say with confidence now, if you're in that position, you need to have spoken to your manager. That's sort of all the procedure, the policy requires that you spoke to your manager. For your information, most of you probably know this, what it actually requires is that your intent to go for promotion has been included in a PPDR. So they're trying to bring it in that it's a conversation that is ongoing. So every supervisor should be aware of that. The next thing was the pre-review meeting. I think I've probably covered that, but the feedback said, what do we discuss? Some people come and they just want to talk about their teaching, and or others don't want to talk about it. But the end of the meeting, they should be fairly clear on their considerations for the 3 teaching capabilities they're choosing. You're also really interested in that first meeting about the types and quality of evidence they can provide. And they're very interlinked, those 2 things, because people will often think, oh, well, I'll just send you, and those of you who have been here a while, I'll just send you a link to my site. You can go through and have a look. Well, that's not what we want them to do now. We want them to be able to say, here's the specific evidence. Potentially you can watch a recording, but 5 hours, you don't want to be trolling through somebody's Brightspace site trying to figure out what it is they're evidencing for you. So that sort of pointy conversations, and the timelines, whatever that suits both of you. That we accept peer reviews from the 1st of May. So whenever you want to do it, we're more than happy to take that. And I talked earlier about making a summative activity, a summative judgment, really. When we got feedback, a couple of people said, look, I get some of this stuff, but when I say stuff, I mean evidence. I get the evidence, but it doesn't seem to link to the teaching capability that the person chose. And really all you can do in those situations, if you've done everything else, if you've had your meeting, if you've talked and somebody has just popped it in, this is the most difficult part, but really you have to make a summative evaluative judgment based on the professional practice. Now, those of you who have known me, those of you who are in this group, generally we tend to take a strength-based approach to that. We're not making the promotion decision. That's not our role, but we do need to peer review the evidence we see and make a judgment on it and then comment on it. So if it's claimed by solid evidence to support your summative judgment, well, whatever that is it. That's how it is. When we talk about looking for a range of evidence, people will often provide a subject outline if they're looking at assessment, or from a course coordinator point of view, they might look at giving you some CDAP information, the course review processes that they've gone through. They'll give you a range of evidence. So sometimes you can bring those in across in a holistic way across the three capabilities that people are claiming or are requesting a peer review. They're requesting a peer review, and that's what we're doing with it. But that taking a learning and teaching perspective is really key as well. Really key. That's all you can do. And that's why we put people generally together from someone outside their discipline. And the final one was the constructive comments, making these comments. What words do we use? How long does it have to be? So the template has addressed some of that. No more than 400 words. It can be less. Constructive evidence-based feedback to support a comprehensive and balanced evaluation. Basically, that's what we're aiming for. I talked about the strength-based approach, and clear and objective, and where possible aligned to Charles Sturt requirements. Your peer reviewers, you're here because you're experienced, because you've got the learning and development or the learning and teaching knowledge. You will know that. That's not an extra thing you have to think about. It's just if you're ever stuck, or if it's the first one you've ever done and the words aren't coming, that kind of information can help. That kind of guidance can help. The teaching capabilities framework, I'm just going to open this. Most of you have well and truly seen this by now. It's probably its second or third year, but if you haven't, what it is, there's a link. We'll pop another link in the chat if you need it as well. But the Charles Sturt capabilities frame the education strategy, vision, and align with the Charles Sturt capability framework. So when people are going for promotion, they need to show that they know this. We need to be able to be aware that it's there. If they're like, but I've never looked at that. Well, you need to look at it. If you're going for promotion, the person really should look at it. It's their choice, but this information's here. The self-assessment tool really lets people gauge their process, but from our point of view in peer review, your peer reviewer will select one of these. There's 12. Sorry, they'll select 3. There's 12. They can select any from the Empower pillar. They can select 3 from the Empower pillar if they want. They can select 2 from the Be Exceptional pillar. They can select whichever ones they want. And when I spoke earlier about the levels, this is what I meant. It's written very much like a criteria. That's not what you're looking at. You don't need to judge them against this criteria. You're not making the promotion decision. But what you are doing is looking at their evidence and saying this is what they've provided. It's up to them to construct the narrative of their levels. However, in that first meeting, when you're talking about these, it's very often really handy for people to go through these and get an idea, well, this is the evidence I can provide. I'm going to open this for questions very soon, so I will close that temporarily. Anyone who has questions on that, I'll speak to it. Now, the evidence examples. There's lots of ones that when I say lots, there's a number of areas where you can get the evidence from. Not opening for me, that's fine. The Teaching and curriculum materials include things like the Brightspace site, if it's a lab, any materials that support that, the subject outline that should detail the learning and teaching process as well as the assessment process in great detail. They're going to have feedback themselves, I think, from their teaching, their marking, their SEUS or the SES survey responses now. They'll have emails, they'll have all sorts of things from the point of view of quasar responses, quasar suggestions. So be prepared for a range of evidence. The supervision and student support. So these have been developed for those of you who are doing HDR, but again, you're subject matter experts to a large extent from that point of view. You'll know, but they can provide details of how they've supported and encouraged their HDR candidates. They can provide details of feedback from the candidates. They can provide any information that supports their claim of excellence in that area. Student learning and performance data, what PD they've done, industry engagement, and of course, recognition and scholarly contributions. They're a big part of it and an important part of it. And finally, we have created a peer review for promotion Brightspace site. You're welcome to go in there. It is a guidance on key requirements. So it's going to be open all the time to everybody. We can go in, just get in for you, show you what it looks like. You may not want to use this. For some of you, it's not something that you will necessarily want to use. But for those of you who just sometimes want to know, oh, what can I do here? We're looking at the peer review for promotion. I'm just going to go straight into peer reviewers. And in this case, I'm going to conducting the peer review. So some of the things we've got in here is what to think about when you're assessing evidence. You don't need to know this today, but it's nice to know it exists. What are you looking for? Is it checked? Is it backed by solid evidence? And is there a range of evidence? Your constructive comments. I spoke about that, but basically we've got some examples down here of comments that you can have a look at. We'll build out these if people find them useful. This is the first time I've opened the site. When did we open it, Lachlan? On Friday or something anyway. So if you find these useful, then we'll develop it out. But if it's not, well, some people will like it. Some people find it good, but not all of you will need all of this. So don't feel you have to do another thing to go into it. But it's good for you to know it's there, to be aware it's there, and that if you're just stuck somewhere, there's some information there that will help you. So thank you for your attention during what turned out to be 34 minutes of speaking. I appreciate it. But please, for now, I'm opening the floor to any questions, any queries, anything you'd like to know or discuss or clarify.
I'm going to go first, Deb.
Yes.
If I can, just two things. One of them is I've just put the link into the Brightspace, Teaching Academy Brightspace site for people to enroll. I can see there Sarah's got the link. Yep, you enroll. Essentially, that adds you to the org site, and then you can access the peer review content, including what Deb's been showing today. So that template, for example, there you can access the template from there. The evidence collection documents, all that kind of stuff has all been organised within the topic on peer review that you'll have access to. And the second part was that Lou had a question before, which looks like Kelly's responded to. So I will shut up at that point. Thanks.
No problem.
Feel free to have a check that though. That's just the way I work. But her question was around, if you find something while you're looking at, say in their Brightspace site, where you might think there's a better alignment with a different capability, would you point that out? And my recommendation was that it's worth having a discussion, because I think, what we are trying to do is, in fact, it's the evidence that's important. So if you find evidence there that meets a different capability that they may not have been looking for. My experience in peer review, as you sort of said before, Deb, is a lot of people go, oh, inclusion. I'm going to do that capability. Like, I'm inclusive, but often the evidence that they might have for that is maybe not as strong as, say, the technology enhanced learning one or something. So for me, that's the big thing. I think, people kind of go, oh, I think I do that and I do that and I do that, but it's having that evidence is what's really important. So I think if you do see something where you're like, that's fantastic, and that evidence, this is capability, this is for promotion. Again, it's a small part of it, but anything that kind of says, this work is fantastic, and especially because we're coming at it from a strengths-based approach. So anything where you've got an opportunity to really highlight the fantastic work somebody is doing, for me is, worthwhile going down that road.
Yeah, thank you, Kel, and for the question as well. Yes, the answer is yes. Again, looking at the time frames and the nature of the peer-driven, of the reviewee-driven nature of it. But yes, I think it would. And one thing that it does bring me to is previous years, there's been because it's a summative, evaluative peer review, there's been a sense that you don't give feedback outside of that you just sort of give that feedback. But certainly there is space for feedback in this, and hopefully in the 5 hours. Many of you may choose to have a final meeting when you've done the report, send it through as a draft, they come back to you, and then you're able to give feedback, often verbally, that you wouldn't necessarily include in the 400-word limit comment. But yes, I would also let them know that. I think I would let them know that. It depends on the peer reviewee. Academics pride themselves, and rightfully so, on being very professional and having a clear idea of probably what their narrative is going to be for their promotion. So yes. And Mark? No, not Mark.
Jen has a question.
Down. Hello, Jen.
Hey, Deb. How are you?
Good.
Hey, Lachlan. I have had one of my colleagues approach me to ask if I'm able to or would like to do a peer review, but she's not applying for the promotion this year. Am I still able to access use that template and everything for her to do the peer review?
Please do. Absolutely. We call that a formative peer review. Generally, it'll be formative, and especially if it's disciplinary based. So for promotion, we're looking at teaching practice based. But for you, if it's peer, yes, please, anything that you can use, anything that helps you, feel free.
Right. And I don't have to log it with you or anything?
No, you don't have to log it with us at all. Some people do. We do have a space where we say request a peer review for a formative peer review, and we do have a list, more so to benefit the people who are doing it, because they may use it for their PPDR in the following year. So yes, if you want something sort of formalized from that point of view, you get a response from the peer review team. But no, you don't have to. Please use any resources that help.
Right. Thank you.
Anna?
Hi, Deborah. Good morning. Thank you for the session. Yeah, I was just curious about the HDR supervision peer review.
Yes.
So, so we're very clear about following the teaching capabilities to guide our conversation if we're doing peer review of teaching, but is that the same expectation when you're doing the HDR supervision? Because, all the items that you've noted there as part of the evidence, the student actually has to do that as part of their communication plan. So that's actually the student proposing that, and we as the supervisory team, we go and give suggestions on that. So, it's just I don't know, from what I was seeing, and I think this is new, right? It just looks like it's a bit imbalanced, right? Like there's a lot of evidence that you can have linked to your teaching, but exactly, you know, what do you do if people ask you to evaluate their capabilities, but based on their HDR supervision? And then, sorry, an additional question, how many students does that count? And also, could they ask for both direct teaching and HDR supervision? Sorry, maybe too many questions in one, but thank you.
No, not too many questions. And first of all, it came in last year. So it came in as part of the peer review last year, the Teaching Capabilities Framework. I think it was introduced at the end of 2023, December 2023. It was passed through the university processes. So we incorporated it last year. So the HDR supervision, because it's noted as a teaching practice, it does come under the Teaching Capabilities Framework. And what we do really tries very hard to do, or what we do is when people submit a request for a peer review, we ask them, is this HDR focused? Is it direct teaching focused? And then when a peer reviewer, most of you have given us your updated information, we ask, do you do HDR? Because we link the peer reviewee and the peer reviewer based on HDR as well. So that's one of the areas where we want people to know. So from the point of view of using the teaching capabilities framework as a requirement, yes, people who have claimed HDR are required to do that. It does just take a little bit of a shift in the lens from it. A lot of the things a lot of the capabilities can be viewed as particularly the educational leadership or the scholarly lens capability can be framed around HDR practice. There's also areas, and I will look up and I'll send this out. I'll put this in the chat. I did actually have a list of the top 3 that we used last year for HDR for this very reason, to provide a little bit of guidance to say, well, these are what's been chosen previously. So yes, you do use the framework, but you do have to have that expertise in HDR supervision to be able to put the lens across it. With regard, you also spoke about the evidence. Any evidence they can provide you will, and I think probably you have found, because you're experienced in doing this, Anna, but most of us will find that when we start talking to people, they will have, right, I do this. I did a school-wide presentation on supervising HDRs. I did something on how to deal with conflict when it comes up, or how to work within a supervisory team. Some people have other evidence. In fact, many people have other evidence, and it's really a nice range of evidence that you can get once you get people talking about their actual teaching practice. Once they see it as a teaching practice, I think often it does progress from there, which is good. You also said, can they do other things? The answer is yes. You didn't quite say that, but can they? Yeah, but the answer is yes. So the Teaching Capabilities Framework, somebody might have done a fabulous assessment piece as well as a fabulous HDR presentation to their school, as well as course directorship, because they may have evidence for all of those. So they can choose any 3, a combination of any 3. It just means that as peer reviewers, we need to be more across it. If you ever come across a situation where somebody has said, could you look at this for me? And you think, oh, no, then let us know. There's a whole group of people who can. You get the answer, what you needed from me, Anna? Yep.
Yes, thank you. Thanks.
No problem at all. Now, Rachel, you've been waiting. Hello.
Hi, Deb. Thank you. I've just got one boring question, which apologies if everyone else is across this, but I just wanted to clarify if it's appropriate for us to ask our head of school for workload and where that fits. I'm not sure, I might have missed the memo with that, but you were mentioning the hours involved before. And then the second thing I wanted to ask was, you might recall, Deb, from last year, I had a slightly recalcitrant sort of person who didn't contact me, and I reached out to them, and then we had a conversation, and you said to me, no, you should not be doing this heavy lifting. They should be doing this heavy lifting. I'm wondering, and I think a lot of conscientious peer reviewers want to do the right thing, so it's tempting to reach out. Is there a timeline you would suggest, or a point at which, if we haven't heard, I'm just wondering if history repeats itself, if we haven't heard from the person, to reach out to you, or what process would you suggest is appropriate in those circumstances?
And that is a really good point. And luckily last year it did all work out well, and I'm sure it will this year. But yes, Wendy and I write to people 6 weeks out, I think, and Wendy will probably be able to, approximately 6 weeks out, we'll write to everyone saying, look, if you haven't contacted your peer review, make sure you do. And then we do another reminder to say, peer review's due, you need to be doing your meeting. There's not a lot I can suggest in that except to contact me. I'm always happy, and Casilla, our team will always be happy to say, look, we understand you, to send an email saying, we understand you haven't contacted your ex. Here are the timelines again. I had people last year who had to say no. I got it, they got it 2 days before. They had to say no. They just had to say that they weren't able to do it. So this does happen. It's something that first meeting we can address, try to set the timeframes, try to be as clear as we can. Certainly in our correspondence and our meetings and our discussions with peer reviewees, we've been really highlighting the dates. But yes, you did the right thing last year. And what Rachel did is she contacted us, we contacted them, it got sorted out one way or the other. And also, if it hasn't met the timelines and you're not able to do it, let us know. Let us know, please, because we'll do what we need to do from this side. But it's not an expectation of mine or the peer review program that you will be put in an untenable position. It's just not. So please call us. And then the workload. I had another one. You asked about workload. At the DPC information session on Monday last week, somebody asked about this in a similar context, but it was the context of being a promotions mentor or a promotions guide. And the response was, they tend to look at it as part of the academic citizenship, but you clearly can use it, I would suggest, in your PPDR, in your performance discussions, in your planning, etc. So I don't know. I understood from that, in that context, they basically said, no, it's not in workload, but it's part of the academic citizenship or the service expectations. Having said that, we appreciate it so much. And if this time you can't do it because of workload, but you can next year, that's fabulous. That would be great. Thank you for your patience down there. Christopher?
Oh, thanks. I'm just wondering about the levels at which we evaluate the capabilities. I'm thinking about the situation where you've got someone who has a teaching fraction and therefore include teaching in their promotion application, but it's a very small component of what they do. Their promotion application is based on other aspects of academia. And so if they were promoted, that wouldn't actually have them expected to operate the teaching at that higher level. So whether we evaluate someone, say someone is going from C to D, but their role now, their role in the future would be in other areas. Do we still evaluate them at that D level if they're not going to be operating at that level as a teacher anyway?
Once again, this was touched on in the session. The narrative, the promotion narrative that the person is making needs to make sense, and it needs to cover every dimension that they're going for. So if they've got a teaching load and teaching requirement, there's an expectation that they will touch on how they do excellence teaching for their promotion. From your point of view, from a peer reviewer point of view, you're interested in the evidence they provide. If that particular person is providing evidence of how they did how their subject was improved by bringing their research in, how their evidence-based learning, whatever it was that they did, then you don't need to worry too much about the level. You just need to honestly evaluate the evidence they've given you from the point of view of teaching.
Yeah, I'm just seeing this. The standards has the different capabilities at the different levels, and so which box do you evaluate it against? Is the question for me.
It is, and I appreciate the question. When you talk about the box, just to be clear that we're both talking about the same thing, I'm just going to share my screen again. And I've got the teaching capabilities framework open. We're talking about these. Yep.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking of. Yes, if someone is going from C to D, but they're never going to be doing their teaching at a D level because their D level work is in other areas.
Yes. The first conversation you have is the ideal time to address this. So instead of them talking about, I think, just grab this one, adopting effective teaching practices aligned with institutional ones. Is this specific? No, that is number 6 that I should show you. So that tends to explain it more readily for people. Develop assessment for learning. Well, they probably won't be showing evidence to that. They won't choose that when you're having to talk to them. Don't choose that. Don't choose the direct. Engage in the use and variety of tech and enhanced learning. But if you go over here into the be exceptional, the pillars over here, some of them are more conducive to that. Successfully engage with reward and recognition. Some of them might have done that. Some people will have done that, but also the one above. Engage in scholarly activity that contributes to the higher ed section. So if they're C to D, well, the scholarship of teaching and learning provide evidence-informed approach to improve student learning. They might find that that's the level, but the D one, where they're going to, it's going to be much harder to meet for this particular one because it's learning and teaching focus. So they may be able to provide that reasonably easily at course level, not so easily at school level. You don't need to evaluate that. This is the guide. They need to evaluate that, and they need to include that in their narrative for their promotion, and when they choose the 3, they take it into account. But your first lot of conversations with them is where your knowledge and your expertise comes in, really. The mentoring peers, potentially they do this really well now, or they may do the level D, but that's up to them to decide. It's more the choosing of the capability that you can guide them on. We will evaluate the evidence as it comes to us against the claim. And the claim is saying, yes, I mentor peers in learning and teaching, and I do it at school level, or I do it at university level, or I do it at subject level, and that's all you need to worry about. But it is really nice. We all want to help our colleagues to get promoted. So I see where that's coming from. How can we help them choose the right ones to make the best story for their promotion application? So I can't give you an easy answer for that one. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Now I think Lou and any odd ones, we can contact you. Yes, you certainly can. Casilla will be taking over that a little bit this time, but yes, you certainly can contact us. Please contact us. We'll do everything we can to support you, because this is what it's about. You are what it's about. And then we will work with the peer reviewee where we can within reason, especially given we support the promotion processes. We don't really have anything to do with them. We have very often provided people, just so you know, with a link to the academic promotions team, just to say, hey, this is a bit out of our area, but Emma or Rebecca or someone, can you have a look at this? So we will do it. And yes, please send it to us. And I'm going to just have to, it's not coming up big enough for me now.
Oh, sorry, Deb, I can help
Yes.
there. Sarah's asking, can we get a link to the Padlet
Yes.
wall into the chat, please?
Yes, we can. And if it's not in the chat now, we should be able to do that immediately. Otherwise, I will add it later. See how this goes. Now I've put in a QR code, I think. No, Emmy's not up. We'll get that to you. Yes, the answer is yes. Maybe not right this minute. Okay. Any last calls for any last questions or comments? Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. No? Oh, well, that's wonderful. Once again, thank you for your time, for your expertise and for your kindness and compassion with our peer reviewers. They do appreciate it and we appreciate it. Lovely. I'll let you all go. Good luck.
Thanks, Deborah. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Now, Lachlan.
That's just me giving them a reminder
Lovely.
that all the stuff that you were sharing is in there.
Yes. Oh, copy link to board. I just didn't go. I was going to say I should have been able to share that in a second. Of course I can. Here's the link. Okay, thank you. I can still share here though, can't I?
Share your screen or just copy the link?
Well, I've copied the link.
Yep, so click into the chat in the room and Control V.
Yeah, no, I know that, but I can still do it and everyone will see it.
Oh, yeah. After the event, the stream stays active. Yep.
Yep.
That's the
lovely. And Chris, you may be there, you may not. That's fine. Otherwise, I will end the meeting. Thank you very much. Thanks, Lachlan. Bye-bye.